everybody, and welcome from wherever you're joining us across our beautiful continent of Africa. My name is Sapi, and welcome to another conversation of Closer Perspective brought to you by Thando Channel, where we unpack everything that affects us as Africans, telling our own story, what makes us laugh, what makes us cry, what makes us angry. Today, we are talking about migration, the story of migration. Everyone in my sphere of influence has at least 3 or 4 family members that have left home, place of origin, going in search of greener pastures. And this is people living in Zimbabwe going to the United Kingdom, people living in Cameroon going to South Africa, people living Nigeria going to the United Kingdom. So it's not something that is peculiar, it's a global phenomenon. And today we're going to hear 2 amazing stories of 2 very strong women, and they're sharing with us their story of where they came from, where they started, and where they are today in the context of migration. I am joined this morning by Lyndie and Caroline, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our guests. Lyndie migrated from Zimbabwe at the age of 19. She lived in the United States, specifically in Boston, for 2 years before migrating to the United Kingdom in 1997. She has a Bachelor of Honors in Accounting. Lyndie is passionate about all things charity and is currently working in finance for a large charity organization. Hi, Lyndie, and such a pleasure to have you.
Hi, Sapi. Thank you for having us.
Then we've got Caroline. Caroline is joining us from South Africa. Caroline is passionate about the public health sector and bridging the gap between the first and third world communities, specifically in public health. She has over 20 years experience, both from the United Kingdom and in South Africa. Caroline is founder of Digital Health, an online support platform for children under the age of 7 and their families. She has a Bachelor of Honors in Midwifery and is a maternal and child health specialist. Caroline, welcome. So good to have you. How is South Africa today? How is Johannesburg?
It's quite nice and warm today, and yeah, I'm loving it. Thank you for having us, Seppi. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. You're welcome. So I'm just going to start off by laying a couple of just facts out there to put migration into context for our viewers. I read a report written in 2018 by IOM Africa around the narrative of migration. And they were reporting that $528 billion flowed by migrants in 2018, and 81 billion of this was flowing into Africa. And in Africa, the top 5 countries that received the highest inflows from migrants, that is via remittances, are Zimbabwe, Kenya, Uganda, and Nigeria. And funds are normally flowing from the United States of America, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and Sweden. I was very surprised to see Sweden there, but there it is. And there are many reasons why people migrate. There's economic, there's social,
Nice.
political, environmental. But by and large, the largest driver is economic. We're all searching for greener pastures. We're all wanting to have access to a lot more opportunities and just be the best version of ourselves. And often we feel that the best place to do this is not in our home countries, especially maybe if you're coming from Zimbabwe. Lyndie, you are Zimbabwean. You left at the age of 19. Why did you leave Zim?
So when I left Zim, it wasn't anything to do with economy. I think my parents just felt that I could probably achieve a bit better and academically overseas. I had an aunt who lived in the US, who was actually the last born in my mom's family. So she lived in Boston, and she said, cool, I could go there and further my education. I I think it was also a protection thing because I had a child at 16. So my son at the time was 3 years old. And my mom just didn't want me to be, sometimes you're lucky, you get those parents that will support you regardless of whatever you do in your life.
Yes.
You get parents that recognize your, the greater need and don't feel like whatever you've done is the end of it, and then just support you. So I was like, I was quite lucky.
Yeah,
I was very lucky to have supportive parents. So I went over to the US. I hadn't done A-level in Zim because obviously after my O-levels, I was busy looking after my
Your
then
baby.
3-year-old.
Yes.
So when I went into the US, I went into a college to do a supplement of like A-level equivalent so I can do a university degree. However, I was already a parent, so that maternal instinct thing didn't leave me. So I struggled for 2 years when I was in Boston because I was trying to get my son to be with me, and you know, the visa situation and everything else. And I thought, you know what, you are supported, you are a full-time student. How are you going to look after a child? So they declined. So I decided to do a runner. I decided to do a runner and come to the UK because at that time the UK actually was a bit more accessible. Yeah, it was a bit more accessible, especially by us Zimbabweans. So I finished my college.
Part of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, we were. Yeah. So I left after finishing my college degree, and I came here. When I came here, the reason was to obviously carry on with my degree, but I came here and then I made arrangements for my son to join me, and I then did my degree years later. Years later.
So when you left, your parents felt better to give you a better opportunity, go and get educated overseas. So when you arrived, you went and landed at your aunt's place.
Yes.
But you struggled because you couldn't get your boy to join you, and that was like number one priority for you.
For me, that was number one priority. To my parents, it wasn't, because they were looking after the boys. So they were like, you know, your son is well looked after, go and get education. But I was already a parent. So, you know, the maternal thing, as young as I've always been that teenage mum that was always proud of having my teenage child.
So Lyndie, you said you did a runner. What does you did a runner mean? Like,
I found some contacts in the UK and I told my mom, my dad, and my aunt I'm leaving for the UK.
Oh my God. And so when you landed in the UK, who did you land with? Like, where did you land?
So fortunately, when I told them that, I'd already made plans with friends, but they then decided that my other aunt who lived here, she would have me. So she was happy to have me.
Okay. Yes. So you had somewhere to land. So it's not
somewhere to land.
As dramatic.
I guess the good side of it, my family's always been a family of people that lived overseas. So we've always had that opportunity because there was always someone in the family who was outside of the country. Especially my mom's sisters. A lot of them were out of the country. Even my uncle, before he passed, he lived in Sweden as well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's fine. And Caroline, is your story as dramatic as Lyndie's? I mean, you know, tell us about how you started out, how you landed in the UK.
No, I mean, my story is not my story is probably very dramatic of leaving the UK for South Africa than it is the other way around.
Okay.
As you can see, Lynn is already shaking her head. I mean, it's it's very dramatic. So, okay. So for me, I'll focus on the more dramatic, you know, part. So I met this then lovely guy. I was already well established in the UK. I had a very, very good job. I had studied to the most greatest level, which I felt at that stage I had. And I met this lovely guy.
So this guy happens.
I fell in love, and this guy happens to live in South Africa. And I remember initially when I told my family that I was packing my bags to go to South Africa from the UK, you know, the amount of resistance that I faced was just out of this world, because, you know, people then were saying, but how can you leave a first world country? You've done very well, you know, you're excelling, you've got a property in the UK, and you've got an extremely good job, you've got good contacts, you've got family and friends that love you. Why are you leaving? And I suppose Lynn was probably one of the people that would feel like, oh, you know, I'm not sure if she's making the right move. But when you're in love, friend, you know, you don't even think of anything about it. So I decided to pack my bags and just leave. I didn't have a job in South Africa. I didn't have a house in South Africa. I didn't have anything. So
She was in
literally, I
love.
was just moving, trusting this man. Just trusting
Wow.
this man and thinking, you know what, let me move and let me go. But I was in love. But at the back of my mind, I've always been this person who feels that I should make a huge difference health-wise, when it comes to people that are very needy. So
Yes.
despite working in the UK for forever and being very comfortable, career-wise, I really felt that there was something missing. I felt that I was in my comfort zone and I wasn't out of my comfort zone, which was pushing me to probably make the most of my career. So I decided just to pack my bags and leave,
Wow.
and that was it. One of my closest aunties saying to me, listen, you don't have to go through this. You can just have your baby here, and you can still continue to have a long distance relationship. I mean, she had recently lost her daughter, so I think for her, she felt I can't lose another one, because we're very,
Yeah.
very close, and she's the one that I lived with when I first moved to London. So,
Okay.
I could sense that for her, it was that maternal, clingy feeling of I can't let this one go. What if anything happens to her? And you hear all these stories about shootings in South Africa, hijackings in
Yes.
South Africa.
Yes.
So they were panicking, they were scared,
Can
and I just left.
Can I ask, Caroline, so how long had you been in this long distance relationship? Because I think that's one of the things that has happened with migration, that has happened with
Yeah.
us becoming a scattered people, in that, it's not uncommon now to hear that, oh, I'm dating someone who's in Canada, and I'm in Australia, New Zealand, she's in Bulawayo. So long distance relationship has, with WhatsApp and video calls, and now with COVID, it's become like the norm. So how long had you been in a long distance relationship for?
So we were in a relationship for 3 years, and then we got married, and I fell pregnant. So for me, it didn't make sense to continue being in the UK, despite of all the extremely good support that I had. I
Yes,
felt that I had to be with him in order for him to also raise his child.
yes,
So
absolutely.
anything else didn't matter. All I wanted to do was just to move. But at the back of my mind, though, I knew that career-wise, that's where I wanted to be, in Africa. I knew I wanted to be in Africa career-wise. How I was going to do it, I didn't know. All I knew was I needed to be in Africa to be with this man, to make my marriage work. But on the other hand, to try to maneuver how things work career-wise. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you guys were actually married.
Yeah.
So,
So we got
so
married.
when the lobola was paid, did you guys do it in the UK? Was it done in South Africa? Was it done via technology?
Yeah. So it was done while I was in the UK and he was in South Africa. And
Ah,
we also got to a point though where the families needed to meet. So the families then we met in Africa and the families got to meet and the whole process then went through. So, but at that stage, though, I think from his side of the family, they really wanted me to move because he came from a situation where he had been in a previous marriage and it was also a long distance marriage. And that marriage hadn't particularly worked. And distance hadn't done
Played a
them any
part.
favor as well. So for his family, it was quite important that I needed to move and be with him. And from his perspective as well, I understood that. But it's just that from my side of the family, everyone kind of thought, I think this girl is making the biggest mistake of her life.
Yes, no, absolutely. No, absolutely. I can understand that. And long distance relationships, long distance marriages, long distance parenting is one of the
Common.
phenomenons, yeah, that
Yeah,
has
most
come
common.
out of, yeah, of people living and having to go abroad or etc. Lyndie, have you experienced anything like this in your sphere of influence? Have you heard any similar stories to Caroline's, in terms of, husband is in one place, wife is in another place, and and soon,
So
then later you hear of, Mama Mncane and things like that.
Yeah. So my situation, one of the reasons why I made a move from the US to UK is because I didn't want the long distance parenting. I I would like to say I was extremely lucky. I was born in South Africa. Actually, the history that goes there. I'm one of the full circle. So I was born in South Africa, but I went to school, and because my dad is Zimbabwean, and
Yeah.
so I went to school in Zim. All my schooling from grade 1 to form 4, I finished in Zim. And in that I lived with my grandmother, and then I lived with my parents, and my dad it never left SA. So my dad was actually long distance. He lived in SA, so we used to see him probably once or twice a year. But from probably the age of about 10, my mom then came back to Zim, and we lived with my mom throughout my high school. So just from experience, I really did not want to be a remote control parent. I just wanted to be with my child. And as young as I was, that was always my ultimate goal, that I didn't want to leave my child behind regardless. So on that aspect, really, I didn't want to leave my child behind. And then I didn't quite have a long distance relationship then, up until now when I'm older. I tried it a couple of years ago, I did try it. The challenges.
It is challenging. It is challenging. And yet, you do get people that seem to make it work, but it really is, I think it takes two very special people, and you need to be able to have the flexibility of being able to travel frequently
Yes.
between the two countries
Yes.
to make it. Okay. All right. So for me, the other thing I wanted to just ask, maybe I'll speak to Caroline, because you said you worked quite a lot in the UK in the public health space before you moved, and you had a good job, etc. Did you experience a glass ceiling because you were Black in color? Did you experience any racism or anything like that? Because you do hear a lot of that. That's the feedback we get when we're back home and we're talking to our friends who are settled overseas, whether they're working in accounting, in the public health space, wherever, that they just kind of get the sense that they can go this far and no further. Was that your sense? And was that your experience?
I must say, I really had a very good experience for a Black girl child. I really had very good experiences. And that's partly to do with because I studied in the UK. So
Right.
if you study in the UK, you tend to fit into the system pretty fast. And having kind of grown up in the UK, it then helped me to integrate quicker and faster. So I must say that I mean, I would hear of the stories of racism, but I never really experienced it because, and I suppose also because I'm this mouthy Black child who always is not shy enough to speak up and also fit and into any situation. So I was exposed to a lot of very good opportunities, extremely good opportunities. And I remember at the age of 25, I was kind of already in a senior management position.
Nice.
I'd already studied up to master's level. For a girl child, a girl Black child, um, those were not the kind of opportunities that a lot of people would have. I probably was one of the pioneers of Black girls. Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I was probably one of the like the pioneer of the typical girl child who did very well.
Yep.
And mention of my name, people were like, "Oh, she's done very well. She's done this," and I was young then,
Yep.
young, no commitment, no, you know, you know, extra baggage per se. So I really had good opportunities in the UK, which is completely different from my experience in South Africa. So when we get to that stage, then I can explain a bit more because in South Africa, um, you sort of have to be a local child to be able to be accepted, and the issue of migration as well and immigration and documents and papers come into place. If you don't have an ID in South Africa, no matter how educated you are, you still one of the, many masses of people that just work. So comparing the UK and South Africa, I would say that the reception that I had as a Black child in the UK was extremely good compared to South Africa. Not in a bad way, but and it is what it is, yeah.
Okay. But just so when you left to be with your husband, was your husband a citizen of South Africa? And did it just not then flow automatically that you're married to a citizen, then it makes it easier for you to get all the required documentation, etc. Because you said I landed, I had no job, I had my child,
Yeah.
happy to be with my sweetheart. But you're saying that you didn't have the documents.
Right. So in South Africa, it doesn't work like that. In South
Oh,
Africa, if you're on a spousal visa, you still need to look for another type of visa to be allowed to work. So I
okay.
didn't want to go down that route because I knew it took a longer time. So I
Right.
preferred to go on a skills visa, which is like
Yes,
if you've got a
yes,
certain type of skills, then you'll be allowed
yes,
to work. So I
yes.
preferred to do that because I didn't want to be on the spousal visa. And also, I think I've always been that kind of a woman who wants to stand, to stand up by myself,
Independent.
without
The
having
stubborn woman.
someone to, because we hear of all the stories when they say, you go on someone else's visa, and then the next thing is if the relationship breaks down, then you kind of find yourself stranded. I never
Yes.
wanted to be in that situation, you see.
Okay.
Yeah. So for those two reasons, then I didn't go on a spousal visa. I decided to go on a critical skills visa. It was quite long. I mean, a longer process, but
Yeah,
probably shorter than the
I remember the
spousal.
frustrations.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, really, yeah. How long did it take? And you applied for the special skills visa when you're already in country, when you'd arrived in South Africa, or prior to you leaving the UK?
Right, right. So what I did, I moved from the UK 2013. I was pregnant with my son then. And I applied for the for the critical skills visa in I think it was 2015. So I'd been going in and out of the country on a visitor's visa, every 3 months fly back to the
Mm,
UK, every three
mm.
months fly back to the
Yeah,
UK
that's
until I was able to apply for the critical skills visa in 20, I think it was 2015. 2015,
okay.
yeah.
Mm.
Actually, it was 2014. I think it was September 2014. So I'd been in the country for about a year and a bit, sussed
Mhm.
out the situation because I needed to be, in the country to see and understand the migration system so that I'll be able to apply for, the type of visa that suited me. Yeah.
Mm.
So from 2014, I mean, if despite having a visa, getting jobs in South Africa is generally problematic.
Wow,
With all my qualifications, I still struggle to get a job because if
really?
you don't have citizenship in South Africa, it's a problem. You see,
Wow.
so you could have any type of visa that you have. So yeah, but I mean, 2015 up to 2016, I still didn't have a job with papers in South Africa. I still didn't have a job.
I'm just going to continue with Linda, then we'll come back to you.
Mhm.
Because I wanted to just find out with Lindy when she gapped it from the States, mom instincts kicking in. When you landed, you said you had your aunt, etc. You were still obviously school-going child,
I was,
in
yeah.
terms of varsity, etc. So you obviously didn't start off going to university. So what was that journey of yours ending up in varsity?
Right. So when I landed, my aunt worked in the social care side of things out here.
Mhm.
So to be fair, back in when did I land in the UK? 1997.
Yes, 1996.
1997, I landed in the UK. Things were pretty easy then. You would land today, tomorrow you are in a job, wouldn't you, Carol?
Ah,
So,
Yeah.
and my aunt is one of the toughest women, she's one of that woman that drives. She'd be like, welcome, good to see you. Here we don't sleep, we work. Okay, so
that's
you
what
have a
everyone in
job.
the UK says.
You have a job. Tomorrow you come with me. I was like, that
Wow.
was my first job ever. I had never worked in my life, and I was about 20, 21 then, and I had
Right.
never worked. When I was in the US, I didn't work. I was just going to college. In Zim, I never worked. I left Zim when I was younger,
Yes.
after obviously being a mum for like 3 years or so. And then that was my first job,
What's your first job?
nursing home. I was
Ah,
looking after, yeah, I was looking after elderly people. So my aunt was she was a qualified nurse and she was the
yes.
home manager. So I turned up at this place and she gave me a pretty quick training.
Right.
I mean, if you're a parent and if you're someone from Africa, you know the caring side of things. So you know how to look after people. You just have to know the policies of working in that industry.
Yeah.
Um, and I have to say that it wasn't the most pleasant jobs that I've ever had. So
Mm-hmm.
being the person that I quickly moved on after like 3 months of working there.
You're like,
I
this
told
is
my
not
aunt
for me.
after 3 months of working there, and I told my aunt I quit.
Yeah.
So I found myself a nice little office job.
Okay.
Yes, I found myself a nice little office job. I had never seen a computer in my life. I'd seen a computer doing schoolwork and everything, and I'd never seen a computer in my life where I can be doing some work. But
Right.
I went into this job as a junior accounts assistant.
Okay.
I was a pretty confident bookkeeper because I'd done this, at school I'd done it.
You've
So
done
I went
account.
in there, yeah.
You've done
So I went
bookkeeping.
in there, and the thing about it is the concept is always the same. So the things that you learn are always standard. You learn the new systems. So they showed me the system. I've never seen that system before. I've seen something else that they totally don't have there. So you go through the same process of being trained on systems. So I got trained on my first system in finance ever. Within a week I was there because I know the concept of accounting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the system and the experience that I didn't have, and I knew things that I needed to do. So that was it. And then I started from there. And this whole time, there's certain things that is not volunteered information when you're new in a country.
Mm.
Papers.
Yes.
This whole time, I'm just minding my own business, going to work, and nobody's asking me, who are you? I know I have a few friends that obviously changed, that used to want to change their names to fit in. There will be,
Yes.
they don't want to be a Gwatunga. They want to be a Smith or a Jones. And I thought, if you
Right.
can't say my name tough, I'm going to be Lyndie Gwatunga all the way.
Yeah.
And I see that people, for example, people that come from Poland have their last names with not even a vowel in it. It's all consonant.
Yeah.
And people know how to pronounce that. You are going to
Yeah.
learn to pronounce Gwatunga, aren't you?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
so that was my motto there. I would go in,
Right.
I'll go, I'm Lyndie Gwatunga,
This
and
is
yeah.
who I am, take me or leave me, but this is who I
Yes,
am.
yes. And I have to say I made some pretty bad decisions. Pretty bad decisions growing up. I was new in a place. Um, I was trying to make sure that I have my son with me. And
Yes.
along that, this boy, he's 27 now. And sometimes we sit down and we talk. And he's got memories here and there for when he was
Yeah.
3 or 4, when he started school here for the first time.
Yes.
He's got a little bit of memories of the things that I used to get up to as his mother. But he was
Yeah.
always by my side. And that to me was enough. That was
Mm.
enough for me. Just, if we want to sleep under the bridge, we'll do it together. That was enough for
Wow.
me. So
Wow. But
I
didn't
I
your aunt help out? Didn't your aunt help out with childcare? Because I was actually going to ask, because I know a lot of people do shift work, especially if
yeah,
you're going to be in the health sector,
yeah,
it's shift work. But if you're in office, it sounds to me like it's an 8 to
it's a
5
9 to 5.
to
Yeah, it's sort of a
kind of
nine to
job,
five
right?
situation.
Yeah.
And
So during that time, you didn't get help with childcare?
so my aunt is a tough lady. And to be fair,
And anyone
she
plus.
molded me to be this person that I am today, because she's that tough lady, no nonsense. So
Wow.
she's that, when she tells you you're doing this and you want to do your own thing, then you're on your own.
Ah.
So I didn't want to work at the nursing home, and to her it was like I'm rebelling. So
Uh-huh.
I only lasted another 3 weeks in her house. I got kicked out.
Oh my gosh.
And that was the first time. And
Oh
because I had
my
a
gosh.
child, because I had a child, I thought, I can't rent one of these rooms and share with however many people my bathroom and my child. So I
Yes.
just committed to getting a 1-bedroom flat for me and my son. So he would go to school, but I was quite lucky because my aunt's got children, and me and my cousin, we 2 years apart. And she was a little bit of a wild child as well. She doesn't mind me saying that. She's all grown up now. So when I moved to my flat, and she was working, because she actually had come to the UK when she was very, very young. She did part of a primary school out in the UK, and she did a secondary school in the UK. So she knew the system very well. So she used to work at a local supermarket, which is Tesco, and she was finishing her degree at the time.
Okay.
So she was very, very supportive. So she would pick up the child from school. So she would, on her way to school, to uni, she would drop the child off, and that would pick him up after school. So that worked quite well.
The life
And
of a
before you
single
know it,
mom.
families started flocking in, isn't it? There was a time where there was like a huge influx of families joining the UK, coming from Zim and stuff like that. So before you know it, I had a lot of family coming into the UK, and before you know it, there you go. The childcare is sorted.
Okay,
You've got children that are almost the same age as yours, and they're all walking to school together and coming back from school together.
so I'm
So
interested to know, in your entry-level job,
yeah,
you were able to afford renting a one-bed flat.
yes,
Wow.
yeah.
That's amazing. Like, how much were you earning? And how much? Okay,
I think
maybe
at the time it was like £7.50 an hour. It doesn't matter. It was ages ago. We're talking 20 years, over 20 years ago. So that's why.
like, and the flat was like, like, what was the rental like for you to be able
About
to afford to?
£450 a month.
Wow.
But
But so what?
again, to be fair, that's where most of the bad decisions came from. So I would pay rent and I would neglect other things.
Oh,
I probably won't pay my electric bill because it was on billing, or I probably wouldn't pay my council tax or whatever. You just don't know these things, and you learn as you live in this country that you don't overlook certain things, and then you put yourself, when these things are now looking at you 3-4 years later, and you think that was not a good move, girl. You learn,
yeah.
you learn
Oh,
that way. Yeah.
I was just relating to Caroline and wanting to hear a comparison because Caroline said her experience professionally in the UK, because she'd been in the system. She'd gone to high school there, Caroline. She'd gone to university there. So she was in the system. She was one of them. So life was fine professionally. She didn't experience any struggles. Was that your experience as well?
So not quite. I've had a few bumps along the way, but what I then decided to do was to exploit the system in the
Oh,
nicest way possible. I didn't mind being the token. So
okay.
if I literally looked around and saw where I can get an opportunity, and that companies sometimes they feel bad about not have, or they look around and they see don't have diversity in their country, in their companies, I would fit myself in there. Even at
Right.
work, if I work in a company and I look around and I see in the management, I'm quite capable of doing certain things, and I can push myself up there, but there's absolutely no diversity over there. And I just sort of lent a way of putting myself through noting about diversity, and just making
Right.
sure that they noted it as well. So I feel like where I've had probably one or so situations where I feel like it may be because I was Black and because I was African, or I didn't have, because on lack of, say, recommendation or advice, I stayed with my Zimbabwean passport for a very long time before I changed it to the UK.
Okay.
And I remember missing out on opportunity of going to work for the company that I was working for. They wanted you to go and work in Canada and live in Canada for a bit, but I still had my green passport. And that meant that I needed to get a visa. That meant I need to do this, I need to do that. And
Right.
my boss just said, unfortunately, you won't qualify to do that because you need to be a British citizen and stuff like that. But and then I looked at it and I saw no reason why I wasn't a British citizen, because I had already held my indefinite leave to stay for a very long time. I just wasn't in that
Mind
thinking,
frame.
yeah, in that mind frame. It wasn't straightforward to me that it could be part of an opportunity. It could make
Okay.
me miss an opportunity or not, because wherever I went, I was proud to say I was Zimbabwean. I was
Yes.
proud to say that I
Of
come from
course.
Zimbabwe.
Of
And
course.
even to this day, I teach Anashe. My son, my second child is 11 years old. I teach him. So he's going through high school for senior year, for year 9.
Yeah.
So he has to do some applications. Then they asked him the other day, they said, so Anashe, what makes you unique? And I listened to his answer and I thought, oh, that's you are my child. he said, so he said, oh, I'm quite lucky because I get to experience 2 cultures. My mom and dad are Zimbabwean and I'm British born. Although my mom let me do some stuff the way we do it in England, she still makes sure that I follow some Zimbabwean cultures because that's her culture. And I just thought, wow, child, thank you.
Wow, that's nice. That is nice. Wow, very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
So you're quite a shrewd woman because you looked and saw the opportunities and said, "There's no diversity. I represent diversity. So this is to be," and that's how you moved along and progressed in your career.
You're gonna have to be a bit more tactical. If you just kind of wait for opportunities to fall on your lap, they
It
don't
doesn't.
always. They don't
Okay.
always. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
And I actually feel like now with this whole Black movement, Black Lives Matter movement, people are deliberately including people of color in the things that they do. I don't know if anyone saw that a couple of weeks ago, or actually last week, there was an advert that came out with all Black families, a Christmas advert, and it caused hey ho in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's
But
about
they're not,
time.
then for years we've seen white families and we've never raised our voices to say something. We've always talked amongst ourselves that, oh, there's a lack of television, diversity of television and stuff like that. The one time that a Black family is featured an all Christmas advert.
Wow. Well,
So
it's about
you can understand the systematic, that's there. That's just like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Caroline, I'm going to come back to you. How you struggled, even though you had your papers, to actually get a job because you were an outsider sort of coming in. I just want to pick up from that and then we can proceed.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah. So I wanted to say, in South Africa, okay, from my perspective, xenophobia is real. So it's at different levels and different stages as well. So you have the typical xenophobia that we see, people, killing each other on the streets and you name it. And, and when people talk about xenophobia, they think that's the kind of xenophobia that happens.
Yeah.
But there's corporate xenophobia.
Tell us.
So there's corporate xenophobia. So this corporate xenophobia, so for example, for me, you're a woman, you've got your qualifications, you go to Home Affairs, the first person that you see when, say, maybe you're trying to renew your visas, blockages. You go somewhere else, blockages. You go to look for a job, they say, no, we want someone who can speak 5 local languages, blockages. So the xenophobia is corporate. It's clean xenophobia. You go to the banks. I'll tell you this very basic example. I wanted to get Wi-Fi. So this is basic Wi-Fi. You think that I have a job and I've got leave to remain in the country. And at that stage, my visa, I was on a 2 years visa. And then I'd gone to apply for the Wi-Fi and they needed someone with a 3 years visa plus. So I couldn't get Wi-Fi.
Because you had 2 years.
Yes, because they wanted someone with...
All organizations, or you just went to one and you were like, I can't be done with this.
No, quite a few of them, because then they would say, we want someone with an ID, and if you don't have an ID, we want a long visa. But if the contract was a 3-year contract, then I couldn't get like a 3-year contract, which probably would have worked out cheaper, i.e. maybe paying something like 200 or 300 rands. Then I would have had to go on a 2-year contract, Wi-Fi contract, which would have cost me 800 rands.
Right.
So you can see the difference. You see,
Crazy.
Whereas in the UK, if you have a visa, you have a visa.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter whether your visa expires next week, but if you've got a visa, you are eligible to get whatever it is that you're applying for. So that's the corporate xenophobia that I'm talking about. So, and some form of corporate xenophobia is, you apply for a job. If you don't speak 5 local languages, then that's it. You can't fit in. But then you sort of ask yourself, if you work in an office, you're not a frontline worker, how would you need, why on earth would you need 5 local languages, to know 5 local languages? Because
Yep.
I presume English is the kind of international language that's spoken by people, but probably in those organizations, you'd get white Afrikaners who probably could only speak Afrikaans and English. So where does the 5 languages fit in? Does it fit in when you start applying for jobs that are not at executive level? So the xenophobia in South Africa is very, it's corporate, and then it's the whole,
it's in stages. It's got different types.
It's got different types.
Yeah.
So that's something I wanted to put out there, because when people say, but you live in a very nice area in Migrate, in a complex, you don't experience xenophobia. And you're like, girl, I experience xenophobia every single day, because the minute I come out of my house, I couldn't even get a car on finance. Not that I wanted to at that stage, but sometimes you kind of think, let me get a nice little car. I mean, not that you want to live luxurious, but I couldn't, because then they would say, well, finance cars, it's 5 years. You don't have a visa for 5 years. So what do you do? So you can't get it,
You can't get a
So
car.
so those were some of the struggles that I faced. And work-wise, same thing. I must admit, though, that the organization that I worked for the past 4 years, I went in there and proved myself, which goes back to what Lynn was saying. You've got to be the type of person who likes grabbing opportunities. So people that are started
work extra hard.
You've got to prove yourself. So I literally started off from working as the most basic frontline worker, but by the time I've left the organization working as part of senior management. So
nice. And how long did it take to get to senior management? Like, how long was that journey for you?
For 3 years, having worked in that organization, because at that stage I proved myself beyond reasonable doubt, and eyes and ears were turning. Where they were saying, "Hang on, how can we have?" I mean, Lynn would know. When I left the UK, I had completely stopped working in general nursing. But coming back to South Africa, I had to go back and work as a nurse, as a frontline worker, as a nurse, because I needed to get into the system and start working. So when I worked for the organization that I'm working for now, heads started turning. How can we have? We would like to think we've employed her as a basic nurse. Hang on, she's not behaving like a general frontline worker. What is happening? What is the issue here? Then people started asking, and people started then understanding and thinking, hang on, this girl, why are you with a master's? Why are you working as a frontline worker? So, well, life, that used to be my life. Life brought me here. Until, when I've left now, well, I'm actually leaving the organization tomorrow, going for another organization. Vika was
journey.
Thank you. So you sort of have to prove yourself beyond reasonable doubt if you're in a foreign world. That goes without saying.
And you always have to work that extra 10,000%.
Yes.
Oh yes. Always.
And I remember sometimes being given responsibilities that had nothing to do with what I was doing, and I would grab those responsibilities. And some of my peers would say, "Why would you do that? Why are you doing that? That's not your job. You're not getting paid to do it." But I was on a game plan. I needed to prove myself beyond reasonable doubt.
Oh yeah.
And some of the opportunities that were thrown at me, they were unbelievable. People then kind of started thinking, hang on, actually we can do this. Local people, we can do this. We can also do that. And that's how it works. When you're in a foreign land, you can't just sit back and expect opportunities to be given to you while you're just waiting for them. You need to go out there and work.
And definitely
125%.
Yeah. And to be fair, opportunities, doesn't matter whether I'm sitting here at home, I can't wait for opportunities to just fall on my lap.
True.
Yeah, I have to go out and get them. But the effort is that much harder when you're in a place where you are a foreigner, So I actually do understand that. So both of you ladies, do you guys still have family and links in Zim, or like for you, Lyndie, maybe in Africa? And how are you like your mom, etc.? Do you support them financially? How does that all play out for you? How do you send money? How often?
So my mother is here.
Ah,
My mom is here in the UK. She's been here in the UK for a while now. My parents separated when I was quite young. My mom remarried, but she remarried an Englishman, so she moved out here. So when I came to the UK, actually, she hadn't moved to the UK. They used to live in South Africa with her husband, and then they made a decision in their older years to come and live in the UK. She's retired now. She's the
okay.
busiest retiree that I know.
Yeah, yeah, I love her. I love her.
So my dad lived from his early years and worked in South Africa for all his life.
Mhm.
He used to work at a company called Big Sales. I don't know what they're called now.
Okay.
So he retired from there and then went back to Zim. It's one of those, probably you should, me giving you a topic in advance, you probably should touch on this of sort of, I can't say absent fathers, but just the way sometimes our families are molded back home.
Yeah. Caroline, do you still have links to Zimbabwe?
So I still have, close links, family. And my mom happens to be one of those women that make things work, you know.
Mhm.
So she is the type of mom that has got, loads of hands and, in her pots everywhere. So she sells and buys things, sells and buys
Yeah.
things. So we tend to, when it comes to money, she probably would, which is what she still does, get someone to maybe pay her money, and then I maybe like someone buys something from her and then they give me the money. So there's always monies that are moving back and forth.
Back and forth. So
Back
she's
and
here
forth.
in Zim, is she? Your mom?
Sorry.
Is your mom here in Zim?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Cool.
Mhm. Yeah.
And she does a lot of. She's a master of many trades.
She
She's
is.
still
And
got lots
and
of energy and making her own money.
yeah, and for a woman who probably doesn't have any type of formal education,
Yeah.
I really think she's done very well, to have
That's fantastic.
two children that are graduates and one that's probably going to graduate very soon. Children that have gone all over the world and seen the world.
Yeah.
For someone who didn't have formal education, I really think, she's always had the vision, to make things work, which is, I mean, she's the one that was able to pay for my fees. I mean, at that stage, she used to work as a carer in the UK,
Right.
but working as a carer, but being the type of person who then has graduates.
Yeah.
You kind of think, wow, woman, you've made it. And when we talk about
Yes.
heroes, we talk about those type of women, that
Yes.
have been
100%.
domestic workers, women that have been, carers, women that have been home-based carers, but they still, the outcome, is children like myself or Lean, which is really fantastic,
Yeah.
and then God to migration as well.
Fantastic. That's really amazing. And Caroline, any parting shots from you? What would you like to say in conclusion as we wind up our conversation?
I think for me, I would like to say, we know the complications that come with migration. It's well documented, and it's those complications are not a secret, but you've got to embrace it and make the most of it, and see what good you can exhaust from it. I have no regrets being in South Africa, and I'll say today, after the four hard years, I have no regrets, because I've been able to slowly start building my portfolio career-wise, just like what it was like in the UK, and
Yes.
socially, I must say, I mean, I was, me and Lynn, when we do our midnight talks, she was saying, babe, I'm so happy that you're happy, and I'm so happy that you're kind of got your groove back,
Yes.
because I'm slowly but surely settling in. So migration has its problems, but it also comes with its good,
Benefits.
goodness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I'd like to say to everyone.
Fantastic. Lyndie and Caroline, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I've so enjoyed listening to your stories. This has been a
Mm.
closer perspective on Thando Channel. If you haven't followed us, we are at Thando Channel on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us, follow the conversation, hashtag migration, hashtag Pan African. We'll see you next time, and goodbye.